Hello, nice that you are here from India. Okay, so this webinar week will be today, tomorrow, and what to do if you can't hear anything. You should be able to hear me. Are you able to hear me, everyone? Please let me know if you can hear me. Put it in the chat. Otherwise, you can turn up the volume on your PC. So, hello, nice. Okay, so today, 7th of April, we will have Foley from the Open University in the United Kingdom. She is going to talk about developing study skills through online interactive workshops. And we will have Achilles from Hellenic Open University from Greece. And he is going to talk about Greece, the combined use of MOOC, e-learning and workplace learning to support professional development. This is a case of project MUSA, if I'm not mistaken. And this will be today from 2 till 3 o'clock. And tomorrow we will have more presentations from Iwan Woprijs from the Open University of the Netherlands and from Tim Boom from KU Leuven. And on Thursday we will have two more, the two last presentations from Ormond Sampson. He worked for the Open University, also from the United Kingdom, and Alan Rusman from the Open University of the Netherlands. So please feel welcome and join us tomorrow and on Thursday as well. And now I would like to switch to the presentation of Karen, of Achilles. Let me see. Yes. Okay, I'm having some problem with the system. I cannot Okay. I think we're back. Can you hear me? Okay. Achilles, you are presenter now again. Can you turn on your microphone and your video camera? Yes. Perfect.
Okay, but I thought I was going to be the second one, or no? Because I'm afraid the people who would like to follow my presentation might log in later.
Okay, so you want to switch with
Mind?
Karen?
If Karen is okay, I wouldn't mind.
Karen, are you okay with that?
That's fine by me.
Yes? Okay, then we switch to Karen's presentation. Let me see. Yes, now it's working again properly. So thank you, Karen. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm in West Wales in the United Kingdom, and my name's Karen Foley, and I'm a lecturer at the Open University UK. It's been very interesting times lately, and following a lot of the news, many universities are looking at switching their learning to online platforms, which I find very interesting. And I imagine for many of us being in distance learning in the various institutions that we're at and various countries we're in, are all facing different challenges. But one thing I found particularly interesting is that many people have been saying it's very difficult to have a lot of communication happening in online situations. So keep it very, very simple. And people are advising people not to have huge amounts of discussion going on in sessions, and saying it's very difficult to have a lot of people in one room, in one space at one time doing things. So I find this very interesting and timely, because one of the areas I've been working on is developing study skills through interactive workshops. And we have a lot of students at these. Typically, there are about 200 students. So today what I'm going to do is explain what we've been doing, how we've been designing the learning, and how this may be useful for other institutions who are interested in distance learning or who are interested in facilitating skills in distance learning. And I have a video I'll show you a little bit later. So here is the focus. Oh, sorry, I should have made these slides a little shorter in length, because some of them are overlapping on the screen. But the focus of my work today that I'm going to explain is these extracurricular academic skills-based online workshops. And they're something that the Open University UK have been running to support our distance learning students. And there are two main reasons that we do this. The first one, which I'll explain a little bit later, is about how we're trying to consolidate some skills that are normally embedded in the curriculum. But the other, more important aspect is about facilitating community and belonging. And this is important to us with the various metrics that we have that are implicated with student satisfaction. So for students, it's very important for them to feel a sense of belonging to their institution. So we've been working on consolidating skills, and I'll show you some of the sessions and the take-up that we've had on them. But the most popular ones are things like essay planning and critical thinking. And while we promote these as quite singular concepts in terms of the academic focus of each session, what we found is that students come because they'd like to focus on that aspect. But where they benefit is in sharing experiences and meeting others, contributing and having their ideas validated, and feeling a sense of belonging. We spent a lot of time as well structuring these workshops, and I'll share with you how we do that, because we basically go through things 3 times. We teach something, and then we have anonymous group activities, and then small intimate activities, and then we have a plenary at the end. And what we found is that by doing this in an extracurricular context, and I'll explain how that happens, students can think about the skills, apply them and test them, and then think about how they might incorporate that into their own learning. Now, the challenge for us has been that these workshops are all non-modular, so they're not linked to any discipline area, and they're relevant for students at any level of study. And the other key requirement that we felt was important was that we don't preload students with any work. They can turn up at these sessions with nothing other than a piece of paper. So we try and use everyday situations and construct the activities so that there's an entry point for every student, no matter what they're studying or how advanced their study skills are. So that's what I'm going to explain in this session today. So the challenge, the academic context that we have been trying to address with this is in this area of community and belonging. And one of the things that's been very important to us in the Open University is that so many of our students who are part-time and at a distance don't feel that they have a student identity. They may be a mother or a carer or a parent, but very often the notion of being a student and doing student-related behaviours or activities goes by the wayside when life gets challenging. And this can lead to them dropping out or feeling that they're not achieving what they want to achieve. However, one of the important things that we know about students who study at a distance and part-time is that they do have these other roles. And for them, community may not matter. They may just want to focus on their studies in isolation. And one of the things that we felt is important is that irrespective of whether students want to be actively involved in community, it's nonetheless important that there is one available to them should they feel that they want to get involved, because things can change at any time. So we've wanted some virtual space, something that isn't linked to anything specific, but that can be there for students to be able to connect with others. Now, Student Hub Live, which is the thing I'm going to be talking about, is just one of the various ways that students can relate to each other within the university and in a non-modular way. So it's only one of a few options. And it's important for us to also recognise that there are other aspects of support, but those are often linked to the curriculum. They'll be from students' modules. And typically what students find is that in the modules, they can benchmark how they're doing through talking through the content with other people and maybe even sharing what grades they're getting. But it's important for them also to have a sense of how they compare in terms of their study skills and their study behaviours, and also to normalise some of the concerns that they may have. So feeling that they're not the only one who's struggling to balance study and childcare, for example. So that's our theoretical issue. And because we're all very different, it's also important just to briefly mention our context, which is a vast range of students. We have many, many students in the UK and internationally, so it's not surprising that they're a very heterogeneous group. Many are studying part-time. We have a higher rate of students who have disability profiles, and also because we're open access, people can come to us with any level. So needless to say, this does present certain risks in terms of progression and retention. And in the UK, our modules tend to last for about 9 months and tend to be about half a year or a full year's full-time intensity in terms of study credits. So being on a module is quite a big thing. Students will spend a lot of time within that group in terms of the calendar year and also the volume of work that they're doing. They're not short courses. So the people that students connect with can be meaningful. And if it's a very small module, sometimes it's challenging to find other people who are studying who you can connect with. The way that we teach skills also is embedded within the curriculum. So throughout the qualification, the learning is designed to include essay writing. But for some students, because they're focusing on other things in life and have various challenges, they focus a lot on the content, what we're teaching them. And sometimes those skills can go by the wayside, which is why they're attracted to some of these sessions. It's also important to mention that we do have other opportunities for students to connect with tutorials, and also they have a personalised tutor who gives them feedback, and their work's assessed around every 6 weeks or so. So our challenge here is to allow some way of students to connect and benchmark and feel that they're not so alone, in particular in their first year of study when it's all very new to them. So that's the particular area that we're trying to attached to, even though this is non-modular and for anyone at any level. So this is our platform, our Student Hub Live brand. You can look at the website and see more about it. It's an open website, so anybody can look at it. Anyone can view a lot of the recordings, but the ones I'm talking about today are just for Open University students. So we have 2 platforms that I'll explain to you. The first one which is on the top of the screen, is the website, and we do broadcast TV style events where people can chat. So much like this, but there'd be, where I'm talking now, a nice studio with guests, and it's rather like breakfast TV. People can talk, and what's different about this is that their conversation forms a big part of what we're talking about. So the online audience are very much involved in what's happening. We started this several years ago with a range of various events. But the workshops, the study skills workshops, which are the lower image, is what I'm going to be talking about. And this is our newest way of actually trying to attract students. Irrespective, though, of which platform we're using, and we're trialing new technologies and new ways of bringing people together, the thing that unites all of these is that they're live, online and interactive events with the primary aim of facilitating academic community, and there will always be some aspect of content there. These aren't a social event, even though the social aspect is where the main benefit is for students. So in terms of what we've learnt about these skills-based workshops, we've learnt that an hour is a very useful time. The next slide is going to give you a little demonstration to show you around the room and the sorts of things that we do. So this may seem a little bit theoretical, but these are some of the important things that may frame your understanding. We open the room 15 minutes before the start time to familiarise students, so we're very strict on our timing. And when students come into the room, we have notices that are played and they give important information. But the other thing that we do is show a collective lot of photographs. So students will send us pictures of their study buddies, their dogs, their cats, or their study space or cakes they've made. So in a sense, right from the very start, this is a shared space. And then, as I mentioned before, we divide the workshop into these various components: a taught aspect, anonymous activities, small discussions, and then a plenary where we bring together all of that information. And students can participate as actively as they want to. Nothing is compulsory. No one will say, what did you think of this, that, or the other? And again, there are a lot of students in these sessions, typically around 200. So this next video is just over 2 minutes, and we will play it now, and this will show you how the room works and give you a little taster of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I'll play this now and turn my volume off. Our Student Hub Live skills workshops are held in the same online rooms as OU tutorials. These extracurricular, non-modular workshops offer an hour of structured skill development, and we focus on a different aspect of study in each session. We begin with some information about the subject, and then we invite you to apply that to your own learning through anonymous polls, text boxes, and also in the chat box. We work through some prepared examples as a group, and you can chat to each other and ask questions while we go through those. And then you'll break into smaller groups to give you an opportunity to share your ideas with other students and hear about the different ways people plan to apply their new skills to their study. You can find our workshop outlines on our website, and you can catch up on recordings of the previous sessions there too. Coming along in person is ideal though, so let me fill you in on how the sessions work and what to expect. The Adobe Connect room opens 15 minutes before the session starts to allow you to log in and familiarise yourself with the setup. It's also a good opportunity to adjust your audio levels. And we begin sessions promptly, and there's a lot to cover, often with a lot of people attending. You don't need any special equipment, and you can access the room from any device, including a mobile phone. You can take part as little or as fully as you'd like to, but I will say that the more you put in, the more you'll get out. Some people just prefer to listen, and others like to chat, but there's no pressure to interact if you don't want to. You don't need to prepare anything in advance, and it's handy to have a pen and paper there with you too. Student Hub Live is for all students at any level, and we offer generic, not module-specific advice. And many students say that, as well as the skills we teach, mixing with other students and academics from different disciplines is valuable because they get a chance to experience new perspectives and different ways of looking at things. It can be so reassuring to find out that you aren't the only one with a question about something and that others are experiencing things in the same way you are. Space is limited in the skills workshops, so you'll need to reserve your spot via Eventbrite. If you can't make it, please cancel your ticket though, so that we can offer it to someone else on our waiting list. Visit our website to find out more, and I hope you can join me at one of our sessions soon. Thank you. So that explains how it works. This slide shows us the volume of interest that we've had in various events. Apologies, it is quite a small slide here, so I'll just point out some of the key highlights. But what it shows is the number of maximum live attendance. We try to limit these to 200 people, but we have people register and a wait list, so it's been a bit of a balance trying to find out how many places we should offer out and then how many people attend. So you can see that the orange line shows the maximum live attendance. That's at the start. Then we've got a waiting list often, so that shows how popular things are. And then the green bar shows how many tickets we actually allocate out. So we've been playing around with allocating more tickets or less tickets just to see how many students typically turn up. So you can see that the most interesting things for students in terms of topic areas are things like critical thinking and writing, understanding assessment, and also essay planning and writing are very, very popular key areas. Sometimes we've broken them up into different sections like essay planning, and then there's a separate section on essay writing, and sometimes we'll combine those. And we tend to offer these throughout the two main intakes of our academic year, so in October and also February. So we'll offer things for both cohorts of students throughout that calendar year. These are some of the things that people say about the sessions, so I thought it would be nice to show some student feedback. Some of the students have said things like, you know, these are key skills here, but I'm often so stressed that it's hard to learn some of these things, and feeling relaxed and in an environment where you can talk to other people and have a sense of fun can just put them in a right headspace to start learning. And here are some other quotes by people, and you can see here that so many people are saying that it's all about meeting people and feeling less alone, less isolated, and whilst getting the information is important for people as well, it's all about leveling and normalizing their own concerns and realizing they're not the only ones with those. So in terms of these large group sessions that I've said, these are some key take-home points that we found in terms of best practice. We've been collating our learnings and findings from these. So as I said before, the hour length seems to be a very good space of time to get through those three various key aspects that we cover, and also that we control the end and start time very tightly has worked well, because otherwise they can be quite nebulous and students cannot wonder what's happening. So having that format where we start bang on time is really important. We also minimize the number of moderators and presenters that we've got, and we tend to find that it's best to let one talk and one to manage all the technical aspects and moderate the chats. And we've also limited some of the functionality. So where we've got a lot of options for people to raise their hands, for example, we limit those, like private chat, so that students can't distract us as moderators from those sessions. We've also found that anonymity is really important, especially early on. So when students can contribute anonymously and then have those things validated, see that other people are including the same answers, they then feel more able to speak and to feel that their perspectives and points are valid areas for discussion, and that tends to help facilitate the group sessions at the end. We also combine open-ended short answer questions with multiple choice questions, again, so that there's a various range of ways for people to contribute. So the more people are clicking on the screen and taking part in activities, the more engaged they are. And we structure those interactive opportunities frequently so that people can't just sit back and relax, because we found that their attention can go when there's just talk happening for a long period of time. We also reserve microphones only to small group discussions, because they can take a lot of time to test the sound level and for people to articulate things quickly and succinctly. And the other thing that we found is that when we move people, even in a virtual space, there can be a disjunct between where they've been and where they are. So we're very clear in terms of how we present tasks, and we make sure that there is a very similar layout so that there's less of a jar between large group discussions and very small group discussions. And we also try to give very clear instructions, so we'll nominate one person to feedback for the plenary at the end, again, so we get the most useful contributions, and very often students will prepare those as they're working through. This is some of the data, so you can see the different areas of interest. Arts and social sciences tend to be our largest in terms of student population generally, and so it's unsurprising that they're the most represented here. We've also found that in a sense community is important, so we get a lot of people, just under half, having been to previous sessions before, and they help facilitate the group and reassure other people as well. So there is that physical community in terms of regularity. What we found in terms of appeal is that while the topic area is important, you can see how it drives the demand for attendance. What tends to motivate people when they're actually there is the value of the group-based discussion. So while they'll often say, yes, what the teacher is saying is the most important thing, actually working through things together has a high value. But it's often not something that students will think about as being a high value earlier. I'm just going to race through because I'm very mindful of the time, and I know we started a bit late, but I don't want to go on for too long as well. So again, because they're non-modular, students can focus on skills, and we give them handouts at the end. So these are just our key learnings here. And you can see from the slide, although I think some of it's hidden, that these are some of the things that students have found helpful. And also there's a whole range of things. So we say, what will you do differently? So we're trying to shift their behavior afterwards with the polls. And here's a slide where you can see that the tutor-led discussion is important, but also the reading of the polls and the activities and the discussions also have a high value for people. So in terms of our wider applications here, I'm hoping people can see that this may be useful in other contexts. So there's this idea that supplementing key things with extracurricular events offers a way that's acceptable and appropriate for students to catch up, and that online workshops can reach a lot of students with low levels of resource, so they're very cheap and easy to facilitate and run. And again, while they're learning the skills, it's this connection and value that has a high leverage in terms of participation, retention, and progression. These can be fun, and students can facilitate their learning in large group discussions, and the show and tell and application appears to work well for people. And these can be done very easily. So while some of this may look a bit complicated, the concepts can be replicated in very simple platforms. There are a range of which there are. And also people can start playing with these things, and then what we've done is increase the complexity as we get familiar with ideas. So these are some of the other areas that people think, but often it's the academic skills that they like. But we're also looking at things like personal development, like coping with change, motivation. We've run a session recently for our students at home with the COVID-19. So some things about confidence could be useful also in addition to the academic skills. And there's a blog you can find out more about if you're interested in seeing about our studio broadcasts, but that's the end. So I don't want to take too much time up. I'm happy to answer any questions, or my email was at the beginning of the slide, and I'm very happy for people to correspond by email also. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you found it useful. Shall we move on to Achilles, unless there are any questions, and maybe if there are questions I can write in the chat for the purpose of time, Bo?
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. Let's do that. Achilles, are you ready for it? Are you also up for it?
I'm here. I hope you can see and hear me.
Yes. Good. I will put your presentation on screen now.
All right.
All right.
Just a moment. Okay. Can I start?
Yes. So when you have more questions for Karen, please ask them in the chat, and otherwise Achilles will now take the floor and present his presentation.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here to attend this very interesting webinar organized by the Empower group of EADTU. And I am Achilles Kameas. I'm professor with Hellenic Open University in Greece. And my presentation, and I'm the leader of the DAISY research group. Today, my presentation will be about combining various, let's say, instructional means like MOOC, e-learning, and workplace learning to support the professional development of a group of professionals, as we applied all this in the context of Project MUSA. In the beginning, I will give you some context about this project quickly. MUSA is a project that is ending this month. It ran for 3 years and a half and addressed the shortage of digital and transferable skills in the museum sector. So we were targeting mostly museum professionals and secondary professionals, or would-be professionals of the cultural sector. What we produced in this project is first we identified a set of digital and transversal competencies for museum professionals. Then we designed new job role profiles based on the competencies. Then we designed training curricula for these new job role profiles. Then we implementing the training, and we developed some technology to support the training. And this presentation today is about the training. A few words, very few, about the job role profiles, the 4 of them, just to give you an idea that they are at different levels in the museum organization, so they are a bit diverse, and so the approach we had to take in designing the content was a bit diverse in order to match the profiles. We're talking about the digital strategy manager, the digital collections curator, the digital interactive experience developer, and the online community manager. Okay, and now, and then to design the training, we took into account as many European instruments as possible and competence frameworks, and we tried to map what we did to ESCO and the national qualification frameworks. So that was the introduction. Now we're getting to the core of the presentation. I have to warn you that this presentation is a bit loaded, so I will move a bit fast, and if you have any questions, you can write me an email and I will be happy to answer them. This is the structure of the training that we developed, of the course that we developed. It consists of 3 stages. First, there is a MOOC, and then there are what we call specialization courses, and at the end of each specialization course was a bit of workplace learning. The MOOC was addressed to all the 4 profiles, addressed the needs of all the 4 profiles, so it was open, it was addressed to everybody. The title was Essential Digital and Transversal Competencies for Museum Professionals. It was an 8 weeks MOOC and was delivered last year with great success. Then at the end of last year, we started the specialization courses. These were blended courses combining e-learning and face-to-face training. We designed a different course per each profile, so there was 4 of them in total, and they lasted 6 months. And the last 2 months of these courses, during the last 2 months of these courses, of each of these courses, the workplace learning was scheduled with the help of the museums that were participating in the project. Now, in order to achieve all this, to implement this, we had to go through a preparation stage, and this stage included the design of contents. And the design of contents included, first of us selecting the competencies. We made use of 3 frameworks. We used IT competencies coming from the e-competencies framework, which is now a standard. Then we used the average person digital competencies coming from the Digicom framework. And then we used a set of transferable, or otherwise called 21st century competencies. We allocated each of these a set of competencies to each job role profile. These sets were not disjoint, as I said, as I implied. There were overlaps between the competencies contained in the profiles. And then that's why we had to identify which were the common basic competencies that we put in the MOOC. And then for each competence, we had to identify also the professional level to which it was going to be delivered. Having done this, we moved on to instructional design, in which we had to define the learning objectives and outcomes per competence, the learning and tutoring effort, and the means of assessment. And then we designed the course structure. It was based on weeks, so 1 week contained a number of modules, but we kept the mapping of 1 module per competence. This led us to the development of modular courses, and it's easy to now create new courses just by reshuffling the competencies or recombining the competencies in each course. Each module was composed of M units, and each unit was taught by a number of learning objects that we developed or we reused. And at the end of each unit, there was an assessment quiz. And of course, based on this, we had to provide specifications for the platforms, the platform services that we were going to use. Then we developed the content. There were two kinds of content, the core content and the auxiliary content. The core content we developed ourselves. We went through two steps. One was the design step, and as we see, there was a review stage between finalization, and then there was the creation step, and again with a review stage. Then we selected the auxiliary content. Then we authored teaching handbooks that were used by the tutors, both in the MOOC and in the specialization courses. In parallel, we developed the two platforms we use, the MOOC platform and the e-learning platform. Both of them are based on Moodle. And in parallel, of course, we had to raise awareness about what we were doing so that we could attract enough participants in the MOOC and in the specialization courses. We did a very big campaign all over the world. You will see the results later. At the same time, we had to train the trainers that were going to deliver the training, but also we had to train the employers. I remind you that we were addressing professionals of the sector, and professionals usually work, and then we have to convince their employers that they have to let their people attend the courses and also take part in the workplace learning. That was not easy, but we managed to a good extent, as you will see. This is a table that summarizes the competencies. We had 8 ECF competencies in the MOOC and 21 in the specialization courses, 9 DigiComp competencies in the MOOC. These are the common ones, and then 6 in total in the specialization courses, and 5 21st century competencies in the MOOC and 15 in the specialization courses. A total of 64 competencies were taught with this approach to the people who participated in the training, in the course. These are the contents of the MOOC, the competencies we included in the MOOC. You see that they are structured on a weekly basis, and every week we had an ECF competence, which was like the basic competence and was complemented by DigiComp competence, one or more DigiComp competencies, or one or more transferable competencies. In this project, I remind you, we were addressing the digital skills shortage. So the training was about digital skills, digital competencies. ECF contains the professional IT competencies, let's say, but we found that for museum professionals who didn't have background on IT, it was hard to to directly go to the level of ECF. So we had to use DigiComp as an intermediate level to help them reach the IT professionals level that we wanted. Here you see the allocation of competencies in the specialization courses, but this is the total allocation, the aggregate allocation. Each specialization course may contain one or more of these competencies. Some of them are replicated in different specialization courses. You see again here the training is based on a weekly schedule. This is the first table, and this is the second table, for a total of 24 weeks, 6 months, that this specialization course lasted. Again, as you see, we used competencies from ECF and from DigiComp and 21st century or transferable competencies. There you see an example of how we described the competence. So let's say we start with, this is a DigiComp competence called netiquette. There is a description given by DigiComp about netiquette, but then based on this description, we produced learning outcomes for the competence that were tailored to the needs of museum professionals, and we designed the course units that would make up the material, the teaching material for this competence. And here you see a similar table for an ECF competence. ECF competencies are more complex than DigiComp competencies. That's why you see more learning outcomes here. Mind you that the learning outcomes in the MOOC, they were at mostly at the low levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. This was done on purpose because then in the specialization courses we decided that we would include there the learning outcomes that were related to the higher levels of Bloom taxonomy. In this way, we provided an entire spectrum of Bloom taxonomy levels of learning outcomes. Now, to produce the content, the authors had to fill a lot of forms so that we made sure this was part of the quality assurance that we applied during the development of the course. They had to provide a lot of descriptions which were reviewed by technical experts, let's say, and also by content experts. Provide a description for the module, the schedule, the structure, the learning objects, and so on before starting producing the content. In this way, we made sure that we were developing what we needed to develop. And here you see an example of a form field that put a lot of stress, let's say, on the authors of material, but also ensured that the material was of high quality, as all the people who participated in the training said in the end. Okay, now we developed content for different types. You can see a list here on the left, and of different formats. You can see a list here on the right. We were trying to be compatible with IEEE LOM, and as I said, we had two types of content: those that we produced ourselves and those that was produced, that we reused, we found, and we reused. Of course, it was open. Here are some examples of the content. First, there was a lot of reading material, which consisted mainly of PDFs and of presentations without voice. People could download the PDFs or the presentations, or see the presentations online, of course. Then we had quite a few videos that we developed ourselves, we produced ourselves. The videos were produced originally in English, but there were subtitles in the other three languages of the partners who participated in the project, and the trainees could download the transcript of the video so they could read it while watching the video online. And we had presentations with voiceover that were treated like videos. Again, they were self-running with subtitles in 4 languages and downloadable transcript. Now, that was the preparation phase, the design phase, and now we come to the delivery phase. We deliver the MOOC via our MOOC platform. You can find it here. This is the address of our MOOC platform, and this is the Musa MOOC. Whoever registered in the MOOC could see this introductory page. You see here 3 forums. Forums were used a lot in the MOOC as a tutoring means. An announcement forum, a forum where people introduce themselves, and another forum for reporting. To the left, you see the structure of the MOOC, but the structure is here as well, based on the weeks that I told you before. So the trainee had to click on one of the weeks, like here we clicked on week 2. In week 2, you get a description of what is going to happen and the 3 competencies that make up week 2. Then the trainee had to click on one of the competencies to move on, and by clicking on one of the competencies, the trainee would see a description of the learning objectives and outcomes of the competence, and then here are the units that make up the competence. At the end of each unit, there is an assessment quiz, and here is a forum that is dedicated to the competence only, to this module, for the trainees and the tutors. A lot of interactions took place through this forum. When the trainee selected one of the units, here is unit 2.1, he or she was moved to an inner, let's say, level where there were descriptions, unit description, learning outcomes about the unit, and then the trainee had access to the training material. Here you can see the buttons previous and next, so the trainee could go through the training material. This is a reading material, a PDF, but the same competence also includes a video, for example, and other training material. And at the end of the unit, there is a quiz, an online quiz, that each trainee had to fill in order to proceed to the next unit. Everybody could proceed to the next unit. It didn't have has nothing to do with the score that they had achieved in each of the quizzes, but graduating the course had to do. There was a threshold of achieving 80% on average for the quizzes in order to graduate the MOOC. Right, that was the MOOC, and now we have the platform for the specialization courses. That's a different platform, but very similar to the other one. Here, the trainee could enroll in one of the 4 courses only and follow the learning material, but in this case, it was combined also with face-to-face trainings. For example, here you see the introductory screen of the Digital Strategy Manager. One of the 4 profiles, if you remember, the screen is similar to that of the MOOC, so that all the training that we did with the people to learn to use the platform wouldn't be wasted. You see here again the structure based on weeks to the right. You see the same forums here, but in this part, there are instructions on how to do work-based learning for this specific profile, and similar introductory screens can be found for each of the profiles, and then the trainee could click on one of the weeks and move on with the material week by week on a linear basis. So you see there are similar screens for each profile. Now, what was the training effort? The MOOC, as I said, lasted 8 weeks. We had anticipated 10 hours of learning effort per week, so in total 80 hours was the learning effort for MOOC, the study effort. And then for the specialization courses, as I said, they lasted 24 weeks. We anticipated 15 hours of study per week, so that's a total of 360 hours of study for each specialization course. And this was allocated to online and self-study, the big majority, to around 190 hours. And then there were 6 face-to-face sessions of 4 hours each, once per month. These were also done via Skype, especially during the end of the course because of the pandemic. And a few hours were dedicated to assessments because trainees had to write and submit some projects. And then it was followed by 10 weeks of workplace learning for a total of 205 hours, in which the trainees were asked to do some project work activities in a museum for 200 hours and submit an assessment participate in an assessment for 5 hours. And then we had some additional training activities that we did with the trainers and the museum employers. Here is a table is an example of the allocation of competencies on the 4 different job roles, just to show you that, for example, one competence can be in all job roles, all can be in some of them. Some competencies require different levels in different job roles. Here are the ECF levels. And of course, that's how we proceeded, and different durations depending on the role. And that's how we proceeded with the planning. It was a bit of a hell of scheduling, but we managed in the end to finalize the training. I think the training ended this weekend, the last weekend, the specialization courses. As I said, we had to train the trainers on how to use platform, but also we had to train the employers and the learners. We did trainings in all 3 countries, and in these participated our trainers, our tutors, but also representatives from the hosting organizations, the museums. And we delivered blended learning that combined the online training that I showed you with face-to-face meetings, which this is a photo from the normal times before the pandemic, that these meetings used to take place in the classroom, but the last ones took place online. And at the end of each unit, there was formative assessment. At the end of each course, there was summative assessment. The formative assessment was done by the tutor judging the learners' participation in the forum, and by the quizzes that I told you about, and by the learners submitting practical assignments. And the summative assessment was done with quizzes at the end of each module. The formative assessment, as I said, was practical assignments and with participation in the forum. And at the end of the workplace learning, the students and trainees had to do a presentation. And now we come to the impact, let's say, that we achieved with this training that we offered. Here you see the number of and the distribution of people who enrolled in the MOOC. We had more than 5,000 enrollments. In the yellow box, you see the countries who participated in the project, but if you give some time to go through the table, you will see people coming from all over the world, actually, from very far countries far away from Europe, let's say, who found out about the MOOC and enrolled to it. But of course, as is the case with MOOCs, not all of them started the MOOC. About 3,400 started the MOOC, and then 1,371 successfully completed the MOOC. This means that they went through all the units and achieved more than 80% score on average in the quizzes. And as you see, people who completed the MOOC came again from all over the world, from various countries, not only from the 3 participating countries that you can see here, but also from other countries in Europe and all over the world. And the majority of those who participated and those who graduated were women. The trainees fared very well in the MOOC. As we see, more than 56% of them achieved more than 95% of score in the quizzes, and 1% of them achieved 100%. These are excellent scores, actually, for a MOOC. Now we move to the specialization course. Out of all these people, 114 continued to the specialization courses, and this is not because more of them didn't want, but because we didn't have the capacity to host more people. Here is a distribution per country. Now, in the case with the specialization courses, because this also included the workplace learning, we had to have signed agreements with museums or cultural organizations which would host the trainees in order to do their practical assignments, their workplace learning. So it was not easy to accommodate 1,000 people in this respect, and we didn't have the funding. And we had 30 dropouts, so 85 people in the end concluded all the 3 stages of the course. I think it's a really high number, and we are very satisfied with it. I have evaluation data only for the MOOC because, as I said, the specialization course finished last weekend, so we haven't yet processed the data. But as you will see here, the satisfaction rate is very, very high for almost everything. Aesthetic quality of graphics, usability in browsing, organization of the sections and elements, and so on. We got very high marks, and the students were really satisfied with what happened. Here you see a little bit more detail. About half of those who finished filled our satisfaction questionnaire. That's still a high number. And we got marks like 90% ease of use, 85% interaction with the learning content, 62%, that's a bit low regarding the support provided for interaction with others. They needed more tools and more time, I guess. For the tutoring, satisfaction was above 70%. And the satisfaction with the quality of the learning resources was really high, 87%, which justifies the effort we put in designing and creating the resources. We got some positive feedback from the tutors as well. They were very happy to participate in this course as tutors. They think that this course is significant. Also, some first feedback from the learners shows that this course was very significant for them, and that's why we considered offering the MOOC again this year. We don't know when, because now we're closing the projects, perhaps this summer, perhaps after the summer, but we consider as a consortium to offer it again this year. Just to conclude, Musa has been selected as a best practice for combining Digicomp with ECF and for offering Digicomp to professionals, and it appears already in the Digicomp user guide published by JRC and European Commission, and will appear in a new publication by JRC and European Commission as one of the 9 global practices of particular interest that uses Digicomp in a context which has a strong link to the labor market. So, professional application of Digicomp. And this is the people who participated in the DAISY group that realized the project on our behalf. This is our website for DAISY. If you want to find out more about us, these are the links that you can follow and the hashtags you can follow to find more about the project. And here are the partners of the project. Hellenic Open University was the coordinator. There were other 2 universities, Link Campus and University of Porto, each one from each country. And then we had cultural organizations like Symbola and Melting Pro from Italy. We had ICOM branches that joined the project as sectoral representatives, like ICOM Portugal and ICOM Greece, and 2 very important, one important web provider, Acme from Greece, and 2 important cultural networks, Cultural Action Europe and IPACN from Emilia-Romagna, Italy. Thank you very much. That was a rather running presentation. I hope I didn't stress you, but I wanted to give you an overview of what we achieved in this project, and we are very proud of it. If you want to find out more about it, feel free to email me or use one of the emails here in the project, in the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Achilles. Do you all have some questions for him? Please ask them in the chat if you want. He will share his presentation and the recordings afterwards with you via email. Thank you all for commenting. I guess there are no questions left. Otherwise, you can just send an email and we can start a discussion over there. Some people are still typing. All right. Yes, thank you for sharing your email address. So may you have more questions, please do not hesitate and send an email. So to come back tomorrow, we will have another webinar session from Iwan Wopperijs and from Tim Boone from 2 till 3 o'clock. And on Thursday, we will have our last webinar session of this webinar week of blended and online education from Ormond Simpson and Ellen Husman on Thursday. So please feel free to join, and we are looking forward to seeing you all there. So thank you for being here. Wish you a good evening. Stay safe, stay home, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow. Bye-bye.